Hey, great to see everybody. We're going to take about a minute for people to show up. Great crowd so far, but we got a lot of people planning to be here. And we will get started very briefly, very quickly. Um, all right. So if you're a delegate in here, please raise your hand on your virtual hand. And I think we will let's give it just a few more seconds. So those of you that are joining us, you'll note, we'll go over it in a minute, but you'll note you're muted. We will be hopefully giving you a chance to speak in the Q&A part. I'll explain that all in a minute once we get started. Well, let's go ahead and start. So really quickly, I just want to let everybody know that we are recording this. So whatever you say is going to be out there. And we're going to start off with some very quick introductions of our delegation. We have delegates as well as Democratic National Committee members and Standing Rules Committee members. Some have more than one role, some have one. But I'll start off with myself, and Nita will be on deck. I am Owen Perkins, and I'm from Denver. And we'll go to Nita with Birian on deck.
Hi, I'm Nita Lynch, and I'm from Denver.
I'm Birian Sundal, he, him pronouns, and I'm from Dellen up in Summit County.
And sorry, I forgot to ask people to use the pronouns. I'm he, him pronouns. Anita?
I'm she, her.
Okay. And then Anthony with Elise on deck.
Anthony Morrow, he, him, Colorado Springs, Colorado.
And Elise with Weston on deck.
Hi, I'm Elise Bell, and I'm she, her, they, them, either one, and I'm from Denver.
All right, Weston and then Dennis.
I'm Weston Roberts. Weston Roberts, I'm from Denver, Colorado. Use he, him pronouns.
And we'll have Dennis, Noah, and Bob go in a row.
Dennis Obdusky, he, him, from Pueblo.
Noah Newmark, he, him, from Centennial.
Bob McGrath, he, him, from Arvada, Colorado.
And we've got Laurie, and Jerry.
Lori Boydston from Salida, Colorado, also running for House District 60.
Jerry Shepard, Greeley, Colorado, she, her, hers.
And a reminder to delegates, please raise your hand so you'll go to the top of the list and I can see you. But I see Alan, and we'll see who's next. Alan.
Greetings, Alan Kennedy from Denver, he, him.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other delegates here right now.
Electra's on, Owen.
What's that? Electra. And Scott Wagner has hand raised. So Electra and Scott, you can tell us who you are. I don't know you.
Sure. Hey, I'm Electra Johnson. I'm the chair of the El Paso County Democratic Party. I'm actually from Huerfano County, and I am running for Senate in District 12.
Okay, and Scott, who are you?
She, her.
Yeah, hi, I'm Scott Wagner, he, him. I live in Colorado Springs.
Okay. And let's see, I'm not seeing any other delegates at the moment.
Tracy's on
Tracy,
as well.
Tracy, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Tracy Wesley. I'm a delegate for Colorado District 3. And she, her.
Okay. And we got, okay. If you're a delegate and you haven't.
And Radhika just got on as well.
Who?
Radhika?
Okay, Veronica?
Here.
Radhika.
The video for a few minutes. It might be too dark because I'm sitting, facing the.
Are you done, Radhika?
Yep.
Okay, that was Radhika. Anybody else? Any other delegates here? All right.
I thought I saw Noah here. Maybe
No.
not.
Noah was introduced already.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah, so I am gonna go, go to a presentation to start off with and give you an overview of what we've been doing as delegates so far. We're gonna spend the first half of the meeting with the delegates giving some reports, and then we will go to questions and comments from everybody in the audience here. Give me 1 second to get this going. Okay. So once again, welcome everybody. This is the Bernie delegate, Colorado Bernie delegates to the Democratic National Convention. And sorry that some of this is popping up on the screen. Try to get rid of that. I want to quickly go over some Zoom etiquette or some Zoom guidelines for everybody. We would, first of all, want to say that anything we say as delegates, we're speaking for ourselves and not for the delegation as a whole. Let's see. We recommend that you set your view to speaker view. That will probably be the best view to watch this presentation. We're going to hear reports for the first half from delegates, then get questions. We'll start with the pre-submitted questions, then take questions from the room. If you want to submit a question during the meeting, use the chat box and send it to the name that begins with the Q&A, but wait until we start with the questions to put a question in there. We're going to keep the chat open throughout the meeting, but once we start the Q&A, we'll close it, so we just use that to send questions to Q&A. So there's somebody on there whose name begins Q&A, and you can send Elise a question to that address. For live questions, if you want to raise your hand, once the Q&A period begins, then raise your hand, and we'll try to get to people in the order they raise their hands. Everybody's going to be muted throughout, but when we call on you to ask a question, we want you to be able to speak. So you'll get a prompt on your screen to unmute yourself, and when we're ready to call on you, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Try to keep your answers short so everybody's got time for more questions, and please keep the conversation respectful. So I want to really quickly, in 5 minutes, basically go through a little bit of what we've been doing in the past 5 months since we got elected as delegates in Colorado. And here are a few quick summaries of things we've been doing, and then I'll get into a little bit more in the slides that follow. But one of the first things we did was we led a successful national effort to rewrite the campaign's protocols of how delegates could act regarding social media, media interviews, etc. That was fairly controversial. It made the New York Times and various papers, and got a good resolution out of it. We were listened to. We started doing some direct action planning for things to do while we were in Milwaukee for the convention. Of course, we never got to do that because we're not going to Milwaukee. We worked for about a month before we got together with the whole Colorado delegation. So before we got together with them, we hosted a mixer, which was a lot of fun. We explored some options for weighing in on the vice presidential pick. We explored the option of nominating Bernie from the floor. He had already declined, already conceded by the time we were elected. We coordinated with delegates from other states and territories via Slack, Zoom, and Facebook, other methods. We worked to establish Colorado as one of a handful of satellite convention spots around the country had it been a virtual convention with satellite spots, and Bob McGrath, who you just met, was instrumental in that planning, but it turned out to be entirely virtual, no satellite spots. We did media training with Jackie Anderson. We had a great youth debate with one of our delegates, Jiva, and a group of high school students from around the country. We are planning caucus and council coverage for during the convention to give reports on that we can share with everybody. And we verified that all delegates would have affordable access to the internet once the convention turned virtual, so that we weren't leaving anybody out by turning virtual. And then some other things in these slides here. One of the biggest pieces we did was some early research that Noah, who you just met, led. And he researched all the state platforms across the country and found the top 4 issues. Every Democratic platform declares healthcare as a human right. 61% of them call for single payer. Every Democratic platform, state platform, declares climate change as catastrophic crisis, and 58% of them specifically call on the Green New Deal type retooling of the economy. 90% of the state platforms call for affordable access to college, and 61% of them specifically call for tuition-free public schools, colleges, universities, and trade schools. And 90% of the party's state platforms discuss the corrupting influence of money and policies, and 87% of them call for several specific election reforms. This was vital information in everything we did, and well beyond this, in terms of finding common ground, finding where we could push the party to adopt our platform. Noah also did a survey of delegates and got 360 delegates to respond. All of them showed overwhelming support for Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, elimination of student loan debt, tuition-free public college, ranked choice voting, transparent election and requiring election audits, and supporting ending the influence of the DNC, DSCC, and DCCC in primaries, local primaries. So this was all vital information. We used it with all of our friends across the country. It made us, gave us a good head start on getting a lot of things going. Another thing we did locally was look at the Colorado State Convention, and in a nutshell, there was a great agreement between Bernie and Biden that came on the eve of the convention that allowed a lot more Bernie delegates to be in place than there would have been otherwise. But there were irregularities with the state party voting for this convention. It was meant to be a ranked choice voting. Everybody was told it was ranked choice. We voted like it was ranked choice voting, but it was tabulated as a single choice election. And we did a lot of follow-up to try to resolve this, try to see if we could review the data and get people seated who might have been left out. We weren't able to get anywhere, sadly. We did a lot of work. Weston, in particular, has started a project called the Green New Deal for Animals and Wildlife, and you can find out more information about that at greennewdealforanimals.org. It's a fantastic new take addition to the Green New Deal. One of the things we did once we realized how bad the pandemic was looking, we encouraged the DNC to divert money from the convention and put it into pandemic relief. So we identified a whole bunch of charities, some related to the pandemic, some related to the racial justice protests and various things going on. We haven't heard any determination, but if you want to contact our state chair, Morgan Carroll, you can contact her at mcarroll@coloradodems.org and encourage her to divert some Colorado state money that would have gone to the convention to some of these worthy charities. And by the way, if we're going very fast, but feel free to make a note and ask for a question when we get to the Q&A portion. We can go more detail on any of these things. This was just a group of delegates who got behind a U.S. Senate candidate. We were looking at themes that we could stress every day through various ways. So these are a lot of the themes we identified if we were at the convention in terms of daily themes we would take on and we would try to promote in various ways. One thing we did do was create these face masks, and we are going to use those in our virtual meetings and to enhance our messaging. They look great in action, and you can get some for yourself if you'd like. You can contact any of us to find out more about how to do that. I mentioned Jiva's youth debate. This is the High School Democrats of America. Jiva is our delegate. She's in the top left corner there. This was a great debate. I think it's on YouTube with each of these high school students portraying or representing one of the presidential candidates. We also took a little time for relaxation. This was a retreat in Salida at Lori's home, and this is another one there. And I think at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jerry to talk about the way the virtual convention is looking. And we can go, I'll stop sharing. Jerry, you ready? We need to unmute Jerry.
Okay, I did that already. Well, thank you, thank you for that, Owen, and thank you, everyone. What's going to happen at the convention is we knew going in that this was not going to be happening live, but it took the DNC forever to say, well, we're going to do some sort of hybrid, and then we're going to do some sort of little gathering, and Joe's going to come and speak. And then it finally came out that no, Joe is not coming to speak. Part of the problem is that the state of Wisconsin is what we call a hold my beer state. In other words, any attempt to get any sort of protections against COVID is shut down by the Republican legislature and the Republican Supreme Court. Not acceptable. So, and of course, part of the canon work of the DNC is they kind of do things behind the scene. Then they let us know, oh, this is what's happening, kind of as a fait accompli. And so they expect us to go along with it. And sometimes we can go along with it, but not always. So the convention's happening virtually. The good news is that anyone can sign up and check out the caucuses, the councils, the program itself. Colorado's also having a delegation breakfast in the morning. I'll have to check with Morgan and see if anybody can participate in that. Of course, you have to kind of rustle up your own breakfast, but it's a good way to connect in the morning and kind of see what's going on during the day. And some of us in the delegation are going to go to these various meetings and report back to the delegation and to the public at large so that they know what's going on. I will also be live tweeting from various things. I'm sure others will be too, and using social media to let everybody know what's going on. Even though the top of the ticket may seem to be in place, there's still a lot that we can do after the convention in terms of down ticket races, in terms of ballot issues. We have at least one good issue that's on the ballot relating to family leave, and I encourage everyone to support it. We know we have at least one really bad one, given the anti-choice one, and I encourage you all to oppose that. And I see we're going to have a screen showing some pictures, which is great. Yeah, this was at Lori's house. Mad props for her hospitality, and insert shameless plug to her candidacy for House District 60. So we'll be all doing this virtually. Some of our team looked into trying to do something, at a site in Colorado, it just wasn't happening. So jump on board. We'll be using media to be in touch with each other. I believe we'll be on Slack as well. So I don't know if anybody has any questions right now, but feel free to hit me up. I can put my email in the chat if anybody thinks they have any questions that can't be answered through the town hall. But I am thrilled to be part of an awesome delegation. I am thrilled that we have a lot of awesome candidates running, from the bottom of the ticket on up, grassroots candidates, awesome candidates, and there's ways for all of us to plug in and do something to move our country in a better direction. So I think we can make it happen. And the convention is what it is. One person I know attended in 2016 called it an infomercial, and there's some truth to that. But we can make it more than that. We can make it a launching pad for our values and for the dissemination of our values and the holding of our elected officials accountable. So anyway, unless anybody has any other questions, I'm out. But thank you again for checking in, and thanks for all that you do to move our country in the direction it needs to go and to save our country and planet. Take care and peace.
All right, thanks, Jerry. And really quickly, I'm just going to look at a couple things in terms of how you can access the convention, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the platform and the rules. spend a little time on that, and then take your questions. So this is demconvention.com. That's basically the hub where you want to go for everything about the convention. One of the things you'll see there is a schedule of the whole day, every day. I'm only showing you a little part of the morning here for several mornings, but these are the caucuses, and it looks like these are set up. If you go to demconvention.com and go to the schedule, it looks like you can RSVP to these caucuses as a member of the public and ideally be able to participate in them. So I would encourage you to try that. And if you're not able to, we will certainly report back about it. They also have the watch channel there, the watch tab, and that will give you a lot of options of how you can be watching the convention live through YouTube, various apps, TV, streaming on your computer. So you really ought to be able to see about as much as you want to see. And I'm going to turn it over now to Dennis Obdusky, who is our return platform committee member. Unfortunately, Terry Tucker couldn't be here, but Dennis, take it away.
Hi, folks. I want you to know a couple things. One, I'm in my third 2-year cycle of co-chairing our state party platform. And if you haven't read it, go to the state party website, and I encourage you to. It's one of the more progressive documents out there. And we're one of the leading states in the nation, I think, representing progressive values. And we have a lot to be proud of. A lot of people don't know much, a lot of the details about the platform process. So I just want to mention it's supposed to be an aspirational document. It's not enforceable. It's supposed to provide the party and the public a view of what Democrats in general believe in. And we also know that we have a remarkably diverse constituency in the party and a lot of different opinions. But in recent history, what's happened, that's much to the frustration of many of us, is that the national platform has also morphed into a document with a mix of what a prospective presidential candidate supports and a shift away from the grassroots. And we're still wanting to try and push that back to having it quit just be an advertising document for the candidate. So anyway, the platform committee is one of 3 committees on the that's part of called standing committees, represent all of the states, and ends up with 3 people from Colorado. I'm sorry Terry wasn't able to be here today. She's taken ill here at the last minute. In the interest of unity, Bernie and Biden had made agreements that were different than the party rules and allowed more delegates to participate on the Sanders side. But one of the notable issues, because it's come up and a lot of people know the keywords but don't understand it, is there's a process called minority reports that grants a minority of at least 25% of the delegates to draft a report on the amendment turned down whenever we have a vote of the entire committee to be brought to the convention floor. But in that unity effort, it appears that it was crafted to make sure that the Sanders representation was below the 25% threshold. So even though we had issues, very likely that more people support than are known, it's not. They were not going to be able to be reported on. So go ahead and go to the next slide. The way that the platform was put together this year, there were a half dozen task groups that were created between the Sanders and Biden campaigns. They put out 110 pages of documents. Compromises. And one of the things I wanted to make sure to reemphasize is that I was really thrilled because we were able to do work to send along Noah Newmark's a report that was a draft representing consensus to the drafting committee. It was a draft of it, but it talked about how Medicare for All is far more popular than our platform indicates. Next slide is this is the committee took the task groups. We met with 41 of us from the Bernie campaign. We put together draft amendments that we had 44 hours to do after we got a copy of the draft platform. Terry and I ended up submitting about 10% of all of the amendments that were put to the committee. So between the two of us, I think we had 26 amendments. The way that the process worked, we were able to, we negotiated with the Sanders and the Biden representatives on the campaigns, negotiated to get people to see where we could not end up at dead ends on some different places. On the Dem Convention website, there's a replay of the entire platform committee meeting. My amendment that was televised was to support the legalization of marijuana. It was, we knew that the Biden campaign was not going to support that because it's been a deeply held belief. But when you're in the minority, we have to sometimes, we call those to have a hill to die on and make sure that we want to make a point with some issues. That's my amendment 4 years ago to create a pathway to legalization of marijuana was in the platform. So this has kind of been a step backwards. Now this sheet has just a few of the overview of some of the wins that we had. That I won't read all of them here, but Terry had gains for bans on importing trophy games from Africa, and blocking no-knock warrants, raising the minimum wage to $15 by 2026, and improving safety for people in meat processing plants and treatment of farm animals. For me, I was able to push for improvement to get into the platform rural broadband to help schools in Indian tribal lands, and also to support getting low-cost legal representation for people in civil cases, because it costs too much to get into court. One of the big issues for me personally was to require public access to know who services a mortgage and who the lender really is. That was an issue in the 2008 financial crisis and is still an issue today, and related to me actually in a lawsuit I had against Wells Fargo and their law firm that went to the U.S. Supreme Court last year. We also received agreement to get Biden's group to relook at the 2005 bankruptcy laws that really sometimes made it really hard for people to keep their property. And so if you have medical debt and you end up in bankruptcy, you risk losing your house at the same time. So we did that, and we also got through one other amendment that was opposed in 2009 by Michael Bennett to allow judges to change mortgage rules. So anyway, a lot of positive signs. They at least gave us the ability to talk about Medicare for All. It doesn't mean anything without it. I know that I'm joining our other delegates and voting no on the platform. I feel bad about that, but we're not giving up on a lot of this progress that we've been making.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dennis. And we're going to go now to Nita quickly, and then Maggie Wonderly just joined us, and she'll be up next. So Birian, look for Maggie Wonderly or Mart. But go ahead, Nita.
Okay. I just want to say that the group this group has absolutely been incredible. I think sometimes people get elected delegates and it's like, oh, I'm a delegate. And I was a delegate in 2016 and that group worked like heck. This group, I just cannot begin to tell you how many hours and hours, because people have really taken this role seriously. So I just want all of y'all to know that. So we have something really cool going on tomorrow, and we want you to be a part of it, and some of you probably know about it. First off, this is a pledge that's over 750 delegates signed nationally for every single state and territory. And so this was the why, the whereas, and said that therefore we will not be voting on a DNC platform that does not have Medicare for All in it. And there are some good things in the platform, as Dennis talked about. I mean, they really worked hard, but this was our line in the sand. And so tomorrow is when we will be casting our votes for Bernie. And then we also, when it comes up on the platform, we will be casting a no vote. Then we are going to blast all over the place on social media that we voted no on the platform, and the reason why for Medicare for All that was not on the platform, in spite of the fact that 38 of 57 states and territories have that on their state platform, and over 89% of Democrats favor single-payer universal health care. So we would love for you all to join in and blast this also, and I'll tell you what the hashtag is, and I hope somebody will, one of our people will put it in the chat. We will be doing this starting at 1 o'clock Mountain Time, and we really want it to trend like crazy. And the hashtags are, I think it might show on this slide, M, and then the number 4, the words all, now, and you capitalize the A for all and the N for now. And yeah, it's in the chat now, so please check it. And then the other hashtag along with that, draw the line. So please, we can get this trending on your social media, every platform you've got. We'll be putting videos up. And so you can tell your story as well when you do this. So please join us. Thank you. Oh, and this is my favorite Bernie shirt.
There we go. Favorite Bernie shirt. All right. Thank you. And do we have Maggie able to speak now?
Yes.
Okay,
Can you hear
great.
me? Okay.
Welcome,
Great.
Maggie. Yeah. So Maggie is from Wisconsin. She's on the
Illinois.
Where?
Illinois.
Illinois. Sorry. She's from Illinois. She's on the Rules Committee. And our Rules Committee member, Serena Gonzalez Gutierrez, couldn't be here. She had a death in the family, I believe. So we're sorry about that, but we're glad to have Maggie here to fill us in a little bit for a few minutes on the Rules Committee's activity.
Yes. So basically, the Rules Committee, our two main jobs are finalizing the rules of convention and then also submitting rules changes for the DNC and primaries and things like that. So I did try to get the rules of convention ahead of the meeting, but they didn't give them to us, even though we're supposed to finalize them. And so I actually wrote a rule change because we had a deadline we had to turn in rules changes by. I wrote something saying that they have to give us the 24 hours from when we receive the convention rules to make changes. And then I did submit some changes to like the rules of procedure and also some rule changes. Well, we didn't have a lot of communication, unlike the platform committee, with the campaign. The campaign basically set up a meeting the day before the actual rules committee meeting with us. And they actually we'd already submitted everything, we'd written everything. They told us that they had made a deal with Biden for the unity resolution, and then they were wanting pretty much everyone to drop almost everything. And so, and then they were saying they would vote no against anything that they felt conflicted, but almost everything that everyone had submitted, they felt conflicted with the unity resolution. So they're, so they're basically telling us, I think that might have been a different from like the platform committee, because the platform committee, they try to get people to drop things too, but voting no, on, like telling Bernie people to vote no on our proposals was maybe a little different than platform committee. So, but basically the unity resolution, I recommend you do vote for it because, you know, it's one of the main things we got out of this. So basically it extends the reforms that we did in 2016 with the Unity Reform Commission. It extends those, including the second ballot, like waiting until the second ballot for superdelegates. It extends it until the next election cycle. Now, the only problem with that is then somebody has to do something at that point to make sure that they don't roll it back after that. So it's good for one cycle. It's really going to be dependent probably a lot on our deep Bernie DNC members, really, because I don't know in 2024, are we going to have a bunch of Bernie delegates at the, you know, at that convention, because I don't know if there's going to be a progressive running like in that election cycle. So so I would recommend anybody who is a delegate on the call to vote yes on it. I am going to talk about another thing that I did manage to get passed, which is that if it's not going to be something the delegates vote on, it goes straight to the rules committee because that's the way they wanted it. But basically, if a candidate suspends, they will keep their statewide delegates and their committee members in every state, including if they keep racking up those committee members and delegates. So that's a big problem we had this time. Almost none of the states that had their state conventions or where they pick the final at-large delegates and committee members. So we were set to lose like almost all of them, except that they made this agreement this time with Biden and Bernie, but he had to give up so much of his leverage with that, I'm sure, just to keep those people. So, so that's another good thing, and that's actually like something that a grassroots person actually proposed, and it was something that I consulted with delegates on because like delegates wanted to have that done. So that's a good thing that we've got that passed too. When they were talking about me dropping a bunch of proposals, you know, it was clear like they were trying to hold this. I think Biden campaign actually liked this proposal that I had, but they were kind of trying to hold it hostage, like we want you to drop everything else in order to, and then we'll vote yes on this. I wasn't really happy with that, and you know, I did drop some of the ones that had to do with the procedural rules of the meeting because they pretty much said they were going to tell everyone to vote no on it anyway. So, but I did keep the permanent superdelegate rule because I felt it was important to stress that we still need to make this permanent. Like you did the unity resolution, but we know that you know, that isn't going to necessarily keep going unless, you know, we get this made permanent. So I did present that. There was also a presentation on corporate money, the DNC taking corporate money and banning corporate lobbyists from serving as DNC members. I had a similar thing last time in 2016 with the corporate lobbyists serving as DNC members or being eligible for superdelegate votes. And it got voted down then too. But this time, that was one of the few proposals that Bernie actually said people could just vote how they wanted on it. So like most of the things, it was either like you vote yes, you vote no. This one was like you can vote how you want. So, but basically when they were giving the speeches, they had the people opposing it who were also lobbyists. They actually, while they were giving the speeches, they made a motion to table the proposal so that nobody could vote on it. And so then we were all going nuts, but because it was a Zoom call that we're in a separate room, we couldn't really, they didn't respond to us like we were trying to stop, you know, stop them from taking it off the table. And so they had a vote to take it off the table. Eventually they saw they'd created a huge problem because it was really a stupid thing to do. They should have just voted on it and got it out of the way. But they created a huge problem, so they actually told the Biden delegates, because they were obviously communicating with the Biden delegates, they said to put it back, like vote to put it back on the table, and then they shot it down. So, so that's it. We definitely had a decreased democratic process going on. And we kind of had the people who actually like pushed back when the Bernie campaign was like talking to us about dropping proposals that Biden doesn't want and things like that. The people who pushed back got to present, and they got stuff through.
So we need to move on. Maggie, are you able to stay for the question period?
Sure.
Up till the top of the hour? Great, thank you. Well, thanks so much for joining us. I know you had a couple things going on tonight. And I know we've got a question coming up from Moji Aga, and then Demian Ryder. And first, while they're getting ready, I just want to make sure to mention quickly that we will plan on doing a follow-up town hall after the convention to report back on everything that happened and give you a lot more information about the effects. But is Moji there, ready to ask your question?
Yes. Do you have my voice?
Yes, thank you. We got you.
Okay. I am not sure what the question was that I sent originally. Can you refresh my memory?
It was about intersectionality, I believe.
Beautiful. Yes. As you know, the issues of peace, justice, environment, human rights, civil rights, whatever our cause, good cause, they are intersectional, i.e., they are multidimensional. Now, we don't have an entity within the civil society that acts like, for the huge corporations, like the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce doesn't produce any product or offer any services. Instead, it provides a welcoming platform for systemic collaboration across industry for all huge corporations. Now, we as progressives, if you will, or people who are interested in advancing civil society in a way that can then produce the kind of numbers that would get the likes of Bernie elected president, for example, we don't have a space in which we could.
So we want to keep the questions relatively
Yes,
short.
I will finish in 10 seconds.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. We don't have a space for that systemic collaboration across cause. I call that intersectional circle. And I actually was lucky enough to be able to talk with Uncle Bernie about 10 days ago. And he said, send me some information, which I did. So I am hoping that we would, as something that we could do as Bernie supporters and delegates, that to begin the process of building that infrastructure for systemic collaboration across various civil society causes.
Great, thank you.
Sorry if I took too long.
That's a great question. I should have mentioned if delegates want to raise their hand, if they want to try to answer, that would be great. Was somebody queued up to answer? With Jackie, were you?
Yeah. I thought that the intersectionality was meant about issues, not about a group that would support Bernie's policies from now on.
May I say something to that?
Yeah.
Sure, please.
Okay, see, the issues are what animates people. So I am interested primarily in peace issues, if you will, anti-war. I'm from Iran originally. Mm-hmm. And so different people are animated, but by different causes. As long as we don't have a platform or an infrastructure for systemic collaboration across issues, we won't be able to build the kind of critical mass that is needed in order to then be organized politically in the way that people would like. So, but we don't have that basic infrastructure, which is why the civil society in this country, despite having enormous numbers, is so fragmented systemically. I hope this helps.
And I do recall that after the 2016 election, Bernie formed the Sanders Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if you have been in touch with them.
I tried, and they never wrote back to me when I contacted. But finally, I talked with Uncle Bernie directly, and I mentioned this to him, and he said that send me the material, so I have it in a little web page. I can send it in the chat.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
And
sorry if I took too long.
Oh no, that's great. We're gonna go, and I would quickly note that I think the caucuses and council meetings that go on throughout the convention help bring that process forward. They help get a lot of the issues and a lot of the constituencies represented and give people the chance to be talking together. I think that's part of the process, but that's a very short answer to a very good question. So I think Demian Ryder and Amy Weinstein would be on deck. And I don't see anybody raising their hands. So, you know, if you've got a question from the floor, feel free to raise your hand in Zoom and we'll get to you if we can. But is Demian there?
Hello.
Hi, great.
I'm glad to say that my question was largely answered, I think, in the presentation up till now. I basically, I lost a lot of enthusiasm for the national election with how the primaries went, and then with the DNC vote going against Medicare for all, against marijuana legalization, you know, there comes a point where you throw up your arms and you just don't care. And I was asking, like, what's the next, you know, more positively, what's the next step forward? What do you think is the next motion? Y'all have hit on many things for that, so you know, we could sort of summarize maybe, but it's not like it wasn't addressed, which is great.
Okay, and I don't know if there's any delegates that want to add something. If you want to raise your hand as a delegate, anything to raise further about Medicare for all? I could say that briefly that, you know, I think part of what you heard is what we're doing in response to it being left out, but we also are, you know, ready to start moving forward on getting it in the next platform and getting it, you know, it's incredible support across the country, and we want to mobilize that support. We know it's going to happen one day. It's just a question of, you know, pushing it to make that day come sooner than later. Bernie's done a great job of, you know, highlighting the current situation with the pandemic and how that, you know, is such a great argument for Medicare for all, puts everything into clear focus. But let's go on. Was Amy Weinstein there? Yeah. I see her. I'll unmute her.
I asked to unmute. I don't know if she's
Thank you. Yes, hi, thank you very much. My question had to do with how the Bernie platform and the Biden platform aligned, and I think that that's been answered. So thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, thanks. And I thought it was, there was some good concession on Biden's part in terms of what he gave up to let Bernie be part of that process and Bernie's delegates be part of that process. So that was good to see, and I think people have pointed out some good areas where Biden has been influenced, we think, by Bernie, and I know that's a question that was coming up. Let me see what the next question was from Peter Lowy, and then Sandy Reevy, I think, on deck, and Judy Danielson after that. So Peter Lowy, are you there?
I don't see a Peter on the list.
Okay. Sandy Reevy, I think was who I said next. She there? Not Judy is.
Sandy, you should be unmuted if you want to talk. You don't have a question? Okay. She said she doesn't have a question in chat,
Okay.
so.
Judy, we're going to try to get your question in.
I actually have maybe 3 questions. I know there's a huge push to get an African American, a Black woman on the ticket. I'm wondering if there's any way we can push to get Elizabeth Warren on to as a concession for all of us who are not very happy about Joe Biden and about the platform, of course, too. So that I don't know if there's any push to work on that. I'm also concerned that we have a Senate candidate who does not support Medicare for All and the Green New Deal, and wondering if there's some lobbying going on to help him change his position, to help him see what the deal is.
I suppose you mean we have 2 Senate candidates in Colorado.
Yes, we
yeah.
do. Absolutely do. And then the third one I asked, does the platform mention the bloated military budget? And I suppose that's a dangerous thing, but by easily cutting a large amount of that, we could fund Medicare for All and climate change legislation and everything else. But I have not read the national platform, so I wondered. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for everything you're doing.
Is there a delegate that'd like to answer that? And I'll just point out really quickly, there's nobody else's hands up. So if you've got a question either now or if you submitted a question and you haven't been called on yet, please put your virtual hand up and we'll get to you. We got about 10 minutes left. Dennis?
I had one of my rejected amendments was to consider a 10% cut in military spending and invest the money in healthcare, education, extreme poverty, mass incarceration, and other things. And there were some things that are a third rail right now that the Biden campaign doesn't want to touch. They don't want to use the word tax increase. There's different issues, but that's another one that they've got a fear of how they'll be painted. Now, I disagree with it, but I'm one vote.
Anybody else got anything to add to that answer?
And to add to your question concerning VP selections, for the most part, it seems like the delegation as a whole on the national scale has been advocating mostly against particular choices as VP. In particular, Susan Rice has been a lot of the emphasis from the Bernie delegation. There has not been sort of coalescing behind Warren as far as the nominee goes, but there has been a stronger support amongst Bernie delegates for Karen Bass, is what I've seen online at least. I really don't think we're going to get what we want in this case either way, but we have been signing open letters just at least telling Biden to nominate a progressive VP as well as make new hires that are progressive on foreign policy as well.
And Bob McGrath, looks like you want to weigh in. Bob, are you able to unmute? There.
I think we have a question from Cleo I saw in the chat.
I'm still trying to answer Judy's question on
Okay.
the local candidate and trying to help them, influence them, lobby them for Medicare for All and a Green New Deal. And we are part of a bigger coalition, bigger delegation of all the Colorado delegates. And they have a program called Win Colorado. And that is addressing how we win the state for all Democratic candidates. There hasn't been any targeted campaign about influencing any of those candidates. It's been more or less just endorse who's already been identified as those candidates. So we as delegates, Bernie delegates in particular, would have the choice of trying to still influence Hickenlooper and any of the other congressional delegate candidates.
Great. And I think it's probably, you mentioned Warren to start off with, Judy. And I think it seems, I'm, you know, she, in some circles has, experts have picked her as the one who would make the biggest difference, that the progressives, the Bernie supporters, the far left, are the people who need something more than anybody else, that need to be moved more than anybody else. But I think that the fact that she's from a state with a Republican governor is making it a challenge to count on, because the Republican governor would fill her Senate seat. So who knows? We don't know for sure. So was there, Scott Wagner has his hand up. So let's see if we can go to Scott. And then
Cleo is next. I unmuted Cleo.
Okay, go ahead with Cleo, and Scott Wagner will be on deck.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. One of them is, because Medicare for, I'm still not happy with the platform. So because Medicare for All is not on the platform, and the Green New Deal is not on the platform, because, you know, I was a delegate in 2016, and because you're not meeting in a group in Milwaukee, so it's very hard to talk to Biden delegates. But have you tried to connect with Biden delegates in the different states to see if they are for Medicare for All and whether they would join in promoting it, even though they're voting for Biden? Because I think that, you know, this is something that's going to be hard for the Democrats if they don't do something, not just for the progressives, but for the independents. Because if we don't get independents on board to vote for Biden, who I can't stand, but I'm voting for, you know, I think we're going to have some problems. And I think that needs to be brought up. That's one of my questions. The other question I have has to do with what other conferences will we be able to attend besides, you know, what they have on a daily basis? Like Biden, is he not going to talk at the convention at all? He's not going to broadcast from his cellar down in his basement? And by the way, Hickenlooper will not change, and you'll never convince Hickenlooper.
No.
He's a moderate Republican in the old style of moderate Republicans.
All right. Well, I'm trying to see if we could get Noah to answer the first part of your question. Noah, are you able to unmute?
Yeah, I'm here.
There we go. Okay.
Well, what I can say, I don't know the full extent of any sort of outreach to Biden delegates, but I know what I have participated in. And so it was mentioned about this survey that I conducted along with several of our delegation, namely Emily Mitchum. And one of the 4 issues was about single payer. And, you know, we found that 75% of all of the delegates across the country were in support of single payer. We asked single payer and on the question of Medicare for All, so using the 2 different languages. And having that information, and then we had this big list of delegates that, you know, through the process of doing a survey, we were able to gather quite a few email addresses for not just Bernie delegates, but for Biden delegates as well. And so as a follow-up, we sent out an email asking those all of the delegates who anybody who we had communication with to sign the pledge to vote no on the platform because of the omission of Medicare for All. So that did get out to quite a few Biden delegates and Bloomberg delegates and Warren delegates and whatever contacts we had. As far as the responses, I can't really say at this point how many Biden delegates have signed on to that pledge, and that would be useful information to know.
Okay.
But I suspect that there is a lot more reluctance and hesitation on the part of those delegates that they're not in line with the candidate they're pledged to, and some concern about that, even if they might personally feel supportive of the issue. And that's sort of where I'm thinking it's at, unfortunately.
Okay. Thanks. And we're basically out of time, but I want to see if we can squeeze 2 more questions in. So I'm sorry we're not going to get to your second question, Cleo, right now. But Scott Wagner, did you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to know what our, if we have a position or stated position for platform or lobbying or point of view otherwise about monetary policy in the Fed. Our stimulus package of $2 trillion is actually being leveraged by the Fed for an additional $4 trillion for large corporations. So we are on the precipice of our fiat currency being sorely devalued at the expense of, which is now probably the 99.8%, right? So, yeah, do we have a position there?
In the platform, you're asking if that's in our platform?
I don't remember, but I want to tell you, I just put a link in the chat to that should bring up the platform. It's a link through my email because I haven't seen a public one. So it's a really long looking email, or long looking link, but that is the current version of the platform, assuming you can pull it up, because I haven't seen it publicized anywhere else.
All right, thanks. And then Angela Baker has her hand up. Angela, are you able to unmute? And if she can't, I think Jolynn might. Angela, are you? Let's see if we can get Jolynn unmuted. See who can go first. Who we got? Jolynn, are you?
Yep, here I am.
Okay.
Got me?
Yep.
I'm just wondering, I know they talked Susan Rice and Karen Bass. I'm just wondering what the pros and cons were for both of the people. I know Bass has had some connection with Scientology. I guess Susan Rice had the big thing with Benghazi, and I'm not that familiar.
Anybody want to answer that? Any delegates want to raise your hand or answer? Anybody who hasn't spoken yet? Or
I can speak briefly. I'm not super familiar, but I mean, Susan Rice generally has a reputation as a hawk, very pro-war, her foreign policy. So, I mean, that's the major no-go on her. And then Karen Bass has a generally progressive record. Some of her foreign policy votes have been a little questionable as well. But as far as, progressives go, she is the most progressive that is still in the running. But we don't really have any say in this. It's going to be up, Biden campaign is going to choose.
Yeah, he's going to have to choose someone he's comfortable with, and nobody's perfect.
all right. Well, we are out of time. We're over time. But again, thanks so much to everybody for joining us today. And we'd love to talk more. And we will definitely plan a follow-up meeting after the convention. It starts on next Monday, a week from today. So, and I know a lot of us will do our best to keep, as people said, tweeting and posting things. I'll be putting a lot on my webpage. And so we will be sharing information throughout the week. Feel free to contact any of us if you want direction on where to look. And we will follow up with everybody about our post-convention report, which would be within a week or two of the convention, as soon as we can after the convention. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. It's been great to have you here. Do get out there and vote. Do make a change. We need that no matter what. We need to make a change this year. So, thanks.
Owen, can I say something real fast?
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention, I had put this in the chat, but we will send, if anyone would like, we can send out some links to some of the social media accounts of the delegates. I'm sure that there'll be some public Facebook posts, you know, about the experiences. And I did want to make sure that people noticed the demconvention.com. There's a schedule. All of the caucuses and councils are open to the general public. So, you know, feel free to join in and, you know, listen to some of the speeches. I think there'll be more of like a YouTube stream for the general public as opposed to the Zoom meeting that the delegates are in, but there's a lot of them going on.
All right. Well, we will try to email everybody who registered with that follow-up information in the next couple days, and feel free to reach out to us anytime. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great convention week. We'll be thinking of you, and we really appreciate your input, your questions, and your listening. All right.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Stay safe.
Have a good evening. Thanks for coming.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Participating.
30, 29, 28.
I feel like we should have a rousing chorus of the liar tweets tonight as we go off, but next time. All right. I gotta have to close the room.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, you know what? I think I can assign it to somebody else. I'm gonna leave, and if you want to keep hanging out, you